there were 1,000 kids and just a handful of adults. And I said, what can I say today that would encourage these children and also have a message for the adults? And I thought about that book that I had written 10 years earlier. But no one there knew what an acorn was. So I translated that acorn into a mango. Mangoes are quite populous in that area. And of course, the story changed a little bit. But the story is very much about those kids that were in that orphanage. They didn't choose where they were. And yet the whole world perceived them in a certain way. They saw them first as orphans, or first as poor, or first even as Africans, or whatever, when people look at them. But God created them with incredible potential inside of them. So the story was born there in that orphanage. I just told a story, and then I went back to my office and wrote it. And it didn't go through very many changes after that. But the real point of the story is it's a conversation starter, not just for children. I've had college students who read it and discuss the social issues that are in the book, grandparents with their grandchildren, adults. It's all ages, because it talks about things that are the same for all of us. How do people perceive us? How do we perceive each other? And do we see what's on the outside and the circumstances that someone is in, or do we see the potential that's deep inside of them? And how is that potential realized? And the reality is that there are millions of children around the world in vulnerable situations. And kids want to talk about this topic too. That's why I say the book is a conversation starter, because it provides a platform where adults can enter into a comfortable and safe, child-friendly conversation about a heavy topic. Topics such as poverty, bullying, judgmentalism, and self-perception, and true worth and value of human beings. Even though we're talking about a mango, that's what makes it a little bit safer in this instance.
Yeah.
So the book has discussion questions in the back of the book that help get that conversation started.
And so basically you use the mango as the object through which you illustrate some of these issues. How do you bring it down to a child's level to where he or she might be able to, as I like to say, connect the dots?
Right. Yeah. So the basic story is this mango is in a very healthy, happy tree where she has big dreams for the future, but the environment changes. The tree becomes unhealthy. She falls from the tree sooner than what she should have. And so this represents the child who ends up out in the world too soon, or experiences things that she's not quite ready for, he or she. And then there's different things that happen. A rat comes and bites her, and she gets mad. And then, a baboon comes and moves her away from the area, and she's in a new place, and she's confused. And then a little goat comes and kicks her, and she's called garbage. And first she's really like, hey, I'm not these things. But then the more that other creatures identify her as being less than what she was meant to be, the more she starts to think, maybe I am garbage, maybe I am no good, maybe I am unlovable. And she gets sour and bitter and oozes with gooey stuff like a little rotten mango would that's on the side of the road. It's that when a man comes by, a person comes by and sees, wow, you're not made for a life like this. This isn't what was intended for you. And he plants her into the ground, and because that's how mangoes are taken care of. And then in the discussion questions, you can then talk about, what do children need, or what do people need in general to be taken care of? So you can talk about how we get angry, how we feel confused, and how we get bitter at the things that happen to us in the world, and then how can we move past that once we start being nurtured the way that we're supposed to be nurtured, and so eventually the whole region is changed because that mango is planted and becomes the tree she was meant to be and begins to bear fruit.
Wow.
I went back to that same orphanage after the book was published, and I read the story to them and showed them the book and gave them some copies of the book for their school. And I had the children begin to dream about the things that they were meant to be, whether it's a doctor, a teacher, an engineer. Those are kind of the big professions in East Africa that students like to think about being. But those are things that can be beyond their reach until they start to realize, I am somebody. I'm not just an orphan.